please.
You are up, Commissioner.
All right, commissioners are back in session. Turn it on over to Jason.
All right, thanks. Thanks for coming in, guys. As we go year to year, we're trying to streamline our budgeting process more and more. So we bring everybody in to talk to the clerk and the commissioners at the same time, so we're all on the same page through the clerk's recommendation and then the approval through the commissioners. So if you had to introduce yourselves for the record, and then just go through and kind of hit the highlights of your budget, any requests that you have, and we'll all have questions and comment and just have a little discussion about it.
Okay. Tori Danner, Bannock County Coroner.
J.R. Farnsworth, Chief Deputy Coroner.
Okay, so we'll just run through whatever's easier. I think you just want to talk about the entire budget increases. I'll just go through increases for operating. I think you guys all have a copy of this sheet, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So we added another investigator position. So as far as a budget, those increases are listed. As far as an operating increase, we increased operations budget. I know that we've tried to stick to our budget goal as far as maintaining what we've had due to adding another investigator, and the increase we've stuck to. Total increase in operational cost we ask is $13,800. The increases take care of operating supplies. A lot of that's just inflation. We increased $1,000. As far as the other line item, as far as hostess supplies, luncheon, stuff like that, we decreased that by $1,000. Cellular telephone, we added a third phone, of course, for our other investigators, so they have a phone. And that was $1,500. That's included. Uniform allowance, we added $1,000 for uniforms, just so we could be identified on scenes. Professional services, we increased $1,000 just for the growing costs.
That's gonna be enough.
Well, we're hoping. Like I said, we're trying to maintain. It's really tough. As you well know, I mean, that's going to be a flexible number, right? It's going to take a number of years to try and identify that. So we threw $1,000 extra in there. I think with what we've added for this last year, we're still seeing where we're at, but that's best judgment thus far.
Professional services is autopsies, right?
Autopsies, drug testing, everything, yeah. And so where we already increased that last year to kind of bring us up, I kind of wanted to float that, and we had added an additional $1,000 just so that we can kind of see where we're at. The other addition is for, let's see, we added an additional $10,000, and this is not reflected on yours. This includes so the total increase is $13,800, but there's an additional $10,000 that you guys will have to pencil in. I did not, I missed it, but we put it in there for the second vehicle, but by the time I got my numbers back to see what that second lease is going to cost, it's going to run $10,000. So you'll have to. The reason for the second lease is because we are increasing call volume, the size of our county. We're seeing that we're getting stacked calls, so which means calls that are coming in at the same time. We're calls in Fort Hall, calls in Downey, whatever. Opposite ends of the county, that's an increasing number, an opportunity of transports that we're going to have to transport. So we need the ability to transport, 2 vehicles gives us that.
So 20,000 is what you're saying there?
So he's asking for an
Yes,
additional.
that'll increase 10,000 on that line item.
Which
Yes.
will change your grand total to, your operating total to 128,900.
Correct. But as we can see, just case loads, we're sitting 652 cases was last year. Where are we sitting now?
323.
So we're already at 323 this year. currently, then when you add in all the housing market, population increase, unfortunately, when you have a population increase, you're gonna have a rising increase in death, okay? So,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
So you said 323 cases thus far this year?
So
Yes.
far this year, calendar
Okay.
year.
How many autopsies have you had this year?
I can tell you. I believe we're at 15, but I'll just verify.
While he's looking at that, that's merely why I'm looking at population increase, caseload increase, everything. We're seeing a huge opportunity we're gonna be stuck, and I wanna be proactive in what we're doing so that we don't have to make a request in the next fiscal year in the middle of it and say, we need to find money for this or that.
This calendar year, we're at 16 autopsies
16 total for the year so far?
for
Okay,
this
thank
calendar
you.
year, yes.
For the calendar year,
Mhm.
not the fiscal year?
Not fiscal year. I can pull up fiscal year if you guys
No,
like.
that's fine.
Other things like we added an investigator in the middle of the year. We're still trying to get through this year without any hiccups, if you will. We have looked for other funding opportunities as far as funding sources for a radio and an iPad. Radio's it's $2,633. iPad is $1,354. We need both of those for the new investigator. I actually sourced those through the State of Idaho Emergency Operations Fund so that we didn't have to include that in the increase. So just kind of sticking to what you guys have asked as far as looking for grant opportunities or other funding opportunities. That's kind of what we've tried to at least do my due diligence in trying to find other ways to source the finances rather than,
So did you put them in this budget?
no.
Okay.
Because of the fact that we've already got that.
Yeah.
Okay,
I do not
okay,
need that
okay.
increase. So, but I just want to be upfront and say, hey, we've looked for other opportunities to fund other ways. I only requested what I need, or what we can see the needs will be, okay? And that's pretty much, really, those are the only increases that we asked as far as our budget goes. And I think we all kind of anticipated, adding a third investigator, there's really not a way that I could just stick to the budget that I had last year. We knew there was gonna be an increase. I've tried my best to minimize and figure out what's gonna be the best way to spend this money that's gonna be the most efficient and most feasible moving forward. So, that is what the budget request is, and I don't know if this is the time that you'd like to do this or if you'd like me to bring up. I do have a project that I would like to present and, just kind of get your.
This is scheduled for budget.
Well,
so
this
I don't
will
know
be
what-
budget.
You're requesting a capital expenditure for something for this coming
Yeah.
budget, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of why, yeah. It will-
Okay, okay.
it'll- I just don't know if you will attach that to my, or if it's going to be a facilities, or, so I just at least wanted to present and let you guys figure out
Okay.
how you want to look at that. Operationally speaking, so more capacity, right? We have 3 body lockers that we are able to utilize. That's up at PMC. We have had multiple times that I've been contacted and said, hey, coolers are down, there's issues, and we've had to go and pick those bodies up and then contact, and I've had to use resources and relationships with local funeral homes to be able to house those while we wait to go to the autopsy. I would like to look in the future, whether, at being able to get our own refrigeration and have our own space to do that. I know that we're looking at doing that potentially in conjunction with the new facility. But as that timeline, what I would like to look at is, I think that I can get the refrigeration unit itself, and a lot of this I can do on a grant. What I can't do on a grant is I gotta have a place to house it. Opportunity-wise, I can see that I don't know what you would call it, the space that we have, like our trailer in that first bay next to the office. if we were to like frame that in so that we can put the fridge there, that maintains our security, that maintains, you know, we have the ability to control that going in and out of there. That's a big thing for us. I always try and look at self-sufficiency, because right now we have a county that we're in charge of these bodies. We're getting a great deal at PMC, but there's issues that I have, part of accreditation looking forward, we have to have a secure locker. We're moving forward to try and get accredited this next year. Secure, yes, we have locks and stuff on there, but it's a matter of how you would interpret security. Their personnel up there at PMC, I had an incident where I had a body being stored before we went to autopsy. They said, oh, these other 2 lockers are empty. We're going to go ahead and clean and maintenance those while they're doing that. And so they went ahead and did that. In order to do that, they had to defrost it, shut it down, everything. What they didn't realize is that it's set up on one refrigeration system. And so in doing so, even though they did not have access to the locker where our body was at, shutting down the refrigeration system sent it into early decomp. That body was twice the size of when I dropped it off. That creates issues. And we really can't go to them and say, don't do this. It's their facility. They're giving us a great deal. We don't pay anything to be able to utilize that. While we've had these gracious things to utilize in these relationships, we need to start putting some stock into being self-sufficient. And in doing this, I can't find a grant. Everything right now, there's a lot of grants out there. I can get tables, I can get everything that we would need through a grant. I'm a firm believer of that. What I can't do is most construction. They've kind of shut down. There's no grants out there for construction costs. But that would be something that we would have to take on.
So have you talked to Dan about that at all?
I have.
Okay.
So I reached out to Dan, talked to him about what we would be looking at. In-house labor estimate to do everything that we would need to do for that would be about $76,000. If we contracted it, he's estimating about $125,000. Doing this, I think back to when we had the quadruple car accident, we had to take those individuals. It was raining, it was muddy, it was not conducive to being able to do a inspection per our investigation standards on scene, right? I had to reach out to Wilkes and be able to use their facility. We really don't have a facility that we can do that right now. This would give us that opportunity in the same setup. Using that bay, framing that in, insulating it, makes it housable for a cooler, makes it housable just to put a table on there, so we have an ability that in the event we have those situations, we can utilize what we already have. We don't have to outsource, we don't have to utilize anybody else. It also gives us an opportunity. COVID wasn't that far back. Even when we do get this facility going, we have that cooler space. This would be backup. This would be something that we could ultimately utilize as a revenue source. As we start up at PMC, whenever we do that, like I said, there's only 3 lockers up there, and that's utilized by PMC and my office and whoever else, I guess. But this would be an opportunity. We could also charge housing while we're doing the autopsies for out of counties that are coming in. If we're doing autopsies up at PMC, this would be a cooler that we could charge housing and offset that cost as well.
So as we get ready to do the clerk's recommendation, we'll talk with you again about it, and we'll talk with Dan a little bit, and then have our end of the budget process meeting before we present to the commissioners and talk about it. Forensic pathology is coming up,
Absolutely.
so we'll talk about all those things and see what we can do with that for
And that's
numbers
and I
this
kind
year.
of was trying to keep in mind everything that we have already going, and this would work in conjunction with, not necessarily against.
Okay.
I want to be mindful of we're using our own facilities. We're trying to offset costs via grants and in-house versus. But I thought, you know, I'm not the money guy, but for the cost of putting into it, we're going to gain a lot of it as far as self-sufficiency, sustainability. There's a lot that we're going to do that we would be able to do in-house that currently we don't have, and we kind of focus on, I shouldn't say focus on, but we've relied on the relationships that we have with other entities to be able to accomplish that. my goal moving forward is to make us self-sufficient, make us stronger in doing that. And I would like to do so in the least fiscally impacting, right?
Sure.
We want to get the most bang for our buck.
And there's two factors here.
Yeah,
I appreciate all that, but we need numbers.
sure.
I mean, saying that we can recoup here and here and here, because other groups have come in and they've had great ideas. And we've asked them to come back with actual numbers
And I can see
so that we are making that decision based on actual numbers, not
Oh, absolutely.
speculation.
No.
And then the other part was, and we've talked about this in the past, have you talked to Hal or to the building inspector? Can we enclose that? Because there's been conversation in the past that we wouldn't be able to pass building inspection because of the way that building's set up to enclose it.
And when I did talk to Dan, he said, do it or do it right. I said, do it right. So this includes the footings and what
Okay,
it would take
okay,
to do
that's-
this correctly. Yeah, you know,
That's what
I
has to
agree
be
with
done.
you.
That's just what I wanted to make
I
sure.
agree
that
with you.
we're-
I just think that, you know, if we're utilizing what we have already, you know, and we're trying to make the most of it. Operationally, for me, it would be huge because there's a lot that we're still growing as our office, but we need to grow, we need to have that operational ability, but we need to be self-sustaining. And it's, you know, it's difficult when I have to call an owner up in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. They don't call me at, you know, between 9 to 5. It's whenever maintenance shuts it down or whenever they decide it goes down. And I literally have to pick up the phone and say, hey, can I utilize your facility, and then go up and bring them over there. And we've been really fortunate that we do have those relationships, but thinking about moving forward, we need to think about how we become self-sufficient. We do strengthen that foundation. So,
Perfect.
thank you, guys.
Any other questions?
Unless you have any, yeah, sorry. Unless you have more, I'm happy to answer.
Christie, do you have anything? Okay. All right.
Thank you.